challenge for me was what kind of film I am planning to do this. You know, it's a documentary film, and there are already few documentaries made on Adoor Gopalakrishnan. There are 2 full-fledged biopic on him. I didn't want to make another biopic on Adoor Gopalakrishnan. I was wondering how to approach this subject. Then it occurred to me, when I was in a Film and Television Institute of India, when I was studying there, there was one series of books which fascinated me all the time. And I have learned more about cinema by those series than by the classrooms. That is called Filmmakers on Filmmaking, in which the filmmaker is talking about his own creations. Why did he do this? Why does he use this technique and things like that? I said, such a work has not been done in Indian cinema at all. We watch films, then we analyze the script. We talk about the story, but story is not cinema. Cinema is something more than that. What are the elements that go into filmmaking? So I wanted to make a film about one such thing. There's a film theoretician called Christian Metz who says it's very easy to experience a film, but difficult to explain it. That's because film touches you or reaches you, or you get the experience through many senses. There are many elements in the film which work simultaneously so that you get that experience. Unfortunately, we don't sensitize people about such things, and we simply talk about the content, the plot, the story. But that is not cinema. I'm not sure how many of you know about, can you tell me, and can someone tell me how many departments are there in filmmaking? How many? 24. So I make a small budget film. Adoor also makes a small budget film. And there are about 40 to 50 departments. And in a big budget films, there are anything between 100 to 200. So the director has to control all the departments. So he has to understand and design every small element. So when we say a film is good, those are the things which go into making films. And we need to understand what are those elements, how do they affect us. That's why I decided to make a film called Images and Reflections, Images of Adoor Gopalakrishnan and My Reflections. So I am reflecting upon Adoor Gopalakrishnan images, and in that process, Adoor is reflecting upon his own idiom. We are not able, we couldn't have covered all the 60s or 100 departments. I selected few very important, this one, like scripting, acting, cinematography, sound, editing, and music. In discussion with Adoor, we arrived at kind of a philosophical understanding of these elements. When I say a film is good or bad, what I look in film is something different from what many others look at in a film. So I want you to realize that we have to look for 3 things in the film. What's it? Not the story, not the actors, not the music, not the songs, but 3 things. One is politics of the film. What is he trying to say? Why is he saying? See, 1P, first P. The second is the aesthetics of film. A. What is the aesthetic concerns of the filmmaker? How does he or she uses those aesthetic elements to convey his story? 3 is the philosophy. So PAP, these things are very important for me to understand the film, any film. In fact, that's what I learned while reading these books, Filmmakers on Filmmaking. And this is an attempt to understand, to understand the philosophy of Adoor Gopalakrishnan, the aesthetic concerns of Adoor Gopalakrishnan, and the politics of Adoor Gopalakrishnan. But to understand this, one should have seen all his films, then only one can understand all these things. Otherwise, you may not be able to connect with it. But however, I don't think many of you would have seen either his films or my films, because it is his creation and my creation, and I am trying to understand from my perspective, his perspective of filmmaking. So you need to understand his philosophy of filmmaking, my philosophy of filmmaking, his aesthetic concerns, my aesthetic concerns, and his political, this one, and my politics. Otherwise, you may not be able to fully understand it. But by watching this, if you can understand not the films of Adoor Gopalakrishnan, or not the films, or not my films, but if you understand, or if you are able to view films from other perspective, a different perspective, go beyond beyond the story, beyond actors, beyond songs, beyond music, I feel my job is done. I am very satisfied with it. So this is an attempt to understand a film of Adoor Gopalakrishnan through those perspectives, and there are a lot of references to his works. If you have not seen those films, you may not be able to connect with it, but you watch the film. It's a bit difficult, I know, watching such kind of films soon after the lunch is even more difficult on a hot day. But let us make an attempt to watch it, and then probably after the film is over, we will have a Q&A. If you want to understand it better, or if you have any doubts, or if you want any clarification, I will be here. Adoor Gopalakrishnan will be here. We are there to answer your questions. Hope you will find the film interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your insightful words, sir. We are very eager to indulge into the film right away. We request the audience to settle down quickly and get ready for this masterpiece.
Traditionally, the first light in the evening will be from this lamp. There are many traditions for which we don't have a regular explanation. As I understand, it was basically the oil lamp was lit because that was the source of light in the past. In the evenings, everybody around will stand up and they say their prayers in silence. So this used to be a practice.
Do you think this practice helped you in any way in connecting with the characters of your films better?
Connecting with myself. Not exactly the community, but then it is neither a ritual nor a superstition. Because I have many superstitions. For that matter, I trust people. Well, some people let you down. That's a bad case. But then most of the people are honest people. I'm still an incorrigible believer, so I am very positive about life.
സ്വർണമല്ല പണമല്ല രത്നമല്ല തിരുമുടി ചൂടിയ പുഷ്പമല്ലോ തിരുമുടി ചൂടിയ പുഷ്പമല്ലോ തിരുമാറിയിലിട്ടൊരു പൂണോലല്ല തിരുമുടി വച്ചൊരു ഭാര്യയല്ല സന്തതി ഉണ്ടാവാൻ എന്തു നല്ലു സന്താന ഗോപാലം ഗാനം നല്ലു.
When we went to Trivandrum to shoot this film, the whole of Kerala was joyously celebrating Onam.
ഓണത്തിൻ്റെ ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻസ് എന്താണെന്നറിയാം. പണ്ട് കേരളത്തിൽ ബലിചക്രവർത്തി ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. അദ്ദേഹം ജനങ്ങളുടെ ഏറ്റവും പ്രിയപ്പെട്ട രാജാവായിരുന്നത്രേ. അതുകൊണ്ട് ഇന്ദ്രന് അസൂയ തോന്നി മഹാവിഷ്ണുവിൻ്റെ അടുത്ത് പോയി കംപ്ലൈൻറ്റ് ചെയ്തു. മഹാവിഷ്ണു വാമനാവതാരമെടുത്ത് ഭൂലോകത്തിൽ വന്ന് ബലിയെ പാതാളത്തിലേക്ക് ചവിട്ടിത്താഴ്ത്തി. മഹാവിഷ്ണു ബലിയോട് നിനക്ക് വർഷത്തിൽ ഒരു തവണ വന്ന് നിൻ്റെ പ്രജകളെ കണ്ടിട്ട് പോകാമെന്ന് പെർമിഷൻ കൊടുത്തു അത്രേ. അതുകൊണ്ടാണ് പ്രജകൾ പൂക്കളം പറിച്ച് നിലവിളക്കും ഒരുക്കി ബലിയെ കാത്തിരിക്കുന്നത്. അതുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഈ ഓണോത്സവം. പിന്നെ കേരളത്തിൽ എല്ലാ കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റിയിൽപ്പെട്ടവരും എല്ലാ ജനങ്ങളും കഷ്ടതകളെല്ലാം മറന്ന് ഈ ഉത്സവം ആഘോഷിക്കുന്നു. ഞാനും ബാംഗ്ലൂരുകാരനാണ്. ഓണത്തിന് നാട്ടിൽ വന്നതാണ്.
ಇದರಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ನಿಮಗೆ ವಿಶ್ವಾಸ ಇದೆಯಾ?
ഇതാഘോഷ ജനങ്ങളുടെ വിശ്വാസ, അതിനാരും ചോദ്യം ചെയ്യില്ല. പിന്നെ എല്ലാ ഉത്സവത്തിൻ്റെ പിന്നിലും ഒരു പുരാണ സത്യം ഉണ്ടായിരിക്കുമല്ലോ. ഇതും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ. ഈ ജനങ്ങളുടെ ലൈഫിൻ്റെ ഇടയിൽ കഷ്ടപ്പാടുകൾ മറക്കാൻ ധാരാളിത്തം പോരെ.
We felt this was a perfect setting for a film on Adoor Gopalakrishnan, whose films often dissolve the clear distinction between mythology and history, allegory and realism, traditional forms and modern expressions. In a way, Adoor Gopalakrishnan's films defy any simplistic depiction of the real.
My ultimate aim is not to copy reality, what you call surface reality. Actually, the creative process starts from experience. You have some experience and then you have the memory of it. But memory will flower into imagination. So, that creative process is not an exact reproduction of either the experience or its memory. When I go to sleep and when I start dreaming, I get the same experience in my dreams. So, which is real? When you are awake or when you are sleeping? What is real? For me, I think both are real. A reality can be a lived reality or it can be an imbibed reality. The reality has many layers in that sense.
കുഞ്ഞിപ്പം വന്നത് നന്നായി. ഇത് ഉടയ്ക്കാതെ തിന്നാനൊക്കുവോന്ന് നോക്കുമായിരുന്നു. കുഞ്ഞു നോക്കിക്കോണേ. ഒരേത് താഴോട്ട് പോകുന്നില്ല.
എവിടുന്നാ രാമൻ നേരെ ഈ മുട്ടയെല്ലാം കൂടെ?
അതോ നമ്മുടെ ഡ്രൈവർ മത്തായി ഇട്ടതാ.
മത്തായിച്ചനോ? ചുമ്മാ.
അതെന്നെ കുഞ്ഞാണ്ട് അങ്ങോട്ട് നോക്കിയേ. ഇപ്പൊ മുട്ട താഴെ പോയാലും. എടോ മത്തായി, തനിക്ക് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടിട്ടൂടായിരുന്നോ മുട്ട?
He is a very fine filmmaker, one of the finest filmmakers in India. In one of his films, he once said about that film, Mukhamukham, that there lives a revolutionary, not in political sense, in every individual. That is what is to say about Adoor, because he is also a revolutionary in the sense that he tries to get revolt in everything, not only political, social, economic, and everything. This is what I find in Adoor's films.
The films that he makes are routinely of a very high quality, both in terms of the content and the style of making films. And the way he has managed to bring tradition of certain kinds of narrative styles into film is what is fascinating and interesting. And he does it with a great deal of simplicity. He doesn't try to impress you with different kinds of histrionics. This is the mark of a great artist, because they respond to their times, The artist responds to his own time, and his responses are the ones that eventually become works of art. But look at Adoor Gopalakrishnan. He's dealt with recent history of Kerala in a very interesting and fascinating way. And the way he puts his films together, I've always thought that he probably is among the finest of his generation of filmmakers. There's no question about it.
How does Adoor define himself in terms of personal politics and personal political understanding? If you look at bits and pieces from several of his films, you would observe that here is a man who has a lot of Gandhi in him. He also has a lot of socialist ideas in him. His response to social changes, his response to the organization of family, the organization of social relationships, the relationship between the individual and society, all those things I think are very persistent concerns of Adoor. So I think that way Adoor Adoor does make a political articulation in his films in that sense, but most striking about his choice is that he chose a very unfashionable path in Kerala, which probably may not be the right path, but that is Adoor's path. That is probably what he chose to do. And that detachment that he is, the creative detachment that he took to politics, to other developments in society, is also very important, because I think that has probably given him a perspective that is unique. I think any creative artist needs to have this linkage coupled with the quality of detachment, the ability to connect and stay clear. I think Adoor, in a certain sense, has been trying to do that very deliberately.
Adoor Gopalakrishnan's films could be understood and analyzed from different points of view. But one important factor is the question of historicity. Adoor can be understood from the point of view of the movements and historical developments in Kerala. For instance, movements like Renaissance, national movement, and left movements. Now these three movements have brought into the Kerala society varying ideas: humanism, self-confidence, a sense of being nationalist, and also at the same time highlighted the nature of exploitation in society. There is also a question of structural changes in society. For instance, the changes in the family structure, changes in caste, changes in the occupation, changes in the way the interpersonal relationships are established. It's not that the importance of these movements or the ideas of these movements directly find an expression in his films, but they form the background in which his ideas take shape. The importance of Adoor is in this quest for achieving the universal by using localism.
ഈ കഥ ഇവിടെ അവസാനിക്കുന്നില്ല. പലതും പറയാൻ വിട്ടുപോയെന്ന് തോന്നുന്നു.
This is where Kathapurusan was shot, isn't it?
Of course.
I believe it's your ancestor house.
Yes.
History and politics form the backdrop for many of your films, but you negotiate with them tangentially to bring a metaphorical quality to your films.
In a work of art, you don't simply narrate history or even catalog incidents that happened at a particular time. But what it should really examine is what impact it has on the people involved, particularly cinema, where there may be a huge, strong temptation to reenact the battlefields. I don't normally kind of yield to such temptations because I'm more interested in the individuals, how it has affected them. In Vibhushan, I thought I should have a very incisive, almost cruel look at myself. So I decided to say something about the period I lived through, right with the freedom movement, then the assassination of Gandhiji, and a period of hope, then a slow disillusionments, the emergence of the Naxalite movement, and then declaration of emergency in a democracy. So this is a very personal, subjective recapitulation of history, an emotional journey through a time of intense social, political turmoil. In many ways, it is about Kerala's history of half a century. Then it is also about the way life has changed.
നീയാണോ കുഞ്ഞുണ്ണി? വെളിയിലോട്ട് ഇറങ്ങിക്ക്. സെർച്ച് ചെയ്യണം.
സെർച്ച് വാറണ്ടുണ്ടോ?
ആ ഉണ്ട്.
There is a belief that to be a political film, there has to be overt statements and sloganizing in films. There are no doubts, no questions asked. Well, that is one kind of cinema. But I believe that in a true sense, there is politics in everything that we do, particularly in filmmaking. That the moment you decide the angle of the camera, you are taking a political stand. If you look at within at a very subtle, hidden level, it can be seen as a statement about how a mind can be colonized and how a nation can be colonized. In a way that the film analyzes the power structure, how the power becomes evil with unquestioning submission on the other side. That's exactly what happened in the instance of this country being colonized. At another level, it is a political statement about the remnants of feudalism and how submissively people gave up their rights, forgetting that you are living in a free country.
എന്താണടാ നിന്റെ മട്ടേ കയ്യില്?
ഒന്നുമില്ലേ.
പിന്നെ എന്തിനാടാ പട്ടി നീ ഇവരെ കൈ പുറകിൽ പിടിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നത്? നിനക്ക് ടൂറാനും മുട്ടുന്നുണ്ടോ?
ബഹുമാനിക്കേണ്ടവരെ കണ്ടാൽ നിനക്ക് ബഹുമാനിക്കാൻ അറിഞ്ഞൂടെ?
ഇങ്ങ് അടുത്തു വാടാ.
യജമാനനെ ദയ കാണിക്കണേ.
Because you are talking about people's lives, and naturally politics has to necessarily form part of it.
Another interesting thing one notices in your films is the way you characterize your woman characters. It's very complex and what do you say, volatile. You know, they struggle to establish a sense and order in their houses. But you know what is fascinating? The vitality or energy of this woman come from within and not from the external world.
Traditionally, Kerala has been a matrilineal society. Amongst some of the communities, particularly amongst the majority communities who own land and all that, they used to have this practice of joint families. So they married within the family. So the advantage was the properties never got divided. People came to inherit the land through the mother's side. So in Kerala, if anybody says, I belong to this particular family, that means it is the mother's family. So that practice gave the women some powers. While portraying women, people have this, usually the notion that women should be protesting, they should raise their voice, etc. But when you portray a woman, for that matter any character, you cannot go against what exists in life, the practices, the traditions and all that. But at the same time, I have not tried to glorify subjugation of women. In fact, I think all my women characters have been strong people.
ചേച്ചി ഇങ്ങനെ ഇവിടെ തനിയെ കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ആളുകൾ എന്ത് പറയും? ഞങ്ങൾ ചേച്ചിയെ വിളിച്ചോണ്ട് പോകാൻ വന്നതാ.
അനിയത്തി സമാധാനമായിട്ട് പോവൂ. നിങ്ങൾക്കാർക്കും ഈ വല്യേച്ചി ഒരു അപമാനവും വരുത്തത്തില്ല. എന്ന് മാത്രമല്ല, ഇങ്ങനെ തനിച്ച് കഴിയുന്നതാണ് എനിക്കിപ്പോൾ ഇഷ്ടം.
എങ്കിലും ഒരാൺതുണയില്ലാതെ ഒറ്റയ്ക്ക് അതെന്താ ചേച്ചി ചിരിച്ചു കളഞ്ഞേ?
തനിക്ക് താനും പുരയ്ക്ക് തൂണം എന്ന് കേട്ടിട്ടില്ലേ? ഇപ്പോ ഈ പുരയ്ക്ക് തൂണ് ഞാനാണ്.
കാമാക്ഷി,
ആരത്?
ഞാനാ കേശവൻ. കഥ ഒന്ന് തുറന്നേ. എന്താ തുറക്കാത്തെ?
ഇല്ല ഇല്ല.
പകലേ പറഞ്ഞതോ? എത്ര നേരമായി ഞാനിവിടെ നിൽക്കുന്നു? ഒന്ന് തുറക്കൂ കാമാക്ഷി.
നിങ്ങൾ ദയവായി പോകൂ. ഞാൻ നിങ്ങൾ കരുതുന്ന തരക്കാരി അല്ല. എനിക്കൊരു തെറ്റ് പറ്റിയതാണ്. ദയവായി ക്ഷമിക്കണം. എൻ്റെ മനസ്സൊന്ന് ചാഞ്ചാടിപ്പോയി. പക്ഷെ ഇല്ല, ഇനി ഒരിക്കലും അത് സംഭവിക്കുകയില്ല. പുരുഷനില്ലാതെ ഒറ്റയ്ക്കൊരു സ്ത്രീക്ക് ജീവിക്കാൻ കഴിയണമല്ലോ.
This is a very quiet but assertive voice, and a certain air of judgment is also there in her voice.
The aspiration of every filmmaker is to elevate, the technique into personal idiom. It has to convey his vision and philosophical concern. I see such a process at work in your films. How do you explain this?
Actually, fortunately, I happened to study film technique and technology at the Film Institute. And while in the institute, I happened to study and familiarize myself with all the trends in filmmaking. Over the decades, technology has been making quantum gems. These things open up new possibilities. But people mix up technique and technology. Technology is for us to use, but the technique is your own. There is an aesthetics about technique also. What is very important for a filmmaker is to evolve his own style. It is molded by your own culture, your own background, your own upbringing, what you are exposed to. And I always believe that when you see a very important work of a filmmaker, another filmmaker, you see the man's culture in it.
One can say there are two kinds of cinemas. One of including a lot of things, making it look rich. The other is that of exclusion and being minimal. I think your films have been minimalist in that sense.
In a way, yes, because I don't try to make them artificially spectacular. Because I'm not presenting the audience with spectacles for its own sake. The audience are made to participate in it. And what I am doing is, in my compositions, I try to be minimal because each element of a composition in the shot it should be suggestive of something. It should mean something to what you are trying to say. And in that process, the audience is made to think. In fact, the audience should be awakened, not dazzled by what they see. So I'd like them to happen naturally before the eyes of the viewer, and then he can make his own inferences.
സൗകര്യമായിട്ടൊന്ന് കാണാൻ നോക്കിയിരിക്കുമായിരുന്നു. സഖാവ് ഇങ്ങോട്ട് കിടന്നത് കണ്ടുകൊണ്ട് ഞാൻ വന്നതാ. കുറച്ച് കാര്യങ്ങൾ ചോദിക്കാനുണ്ട്. അല്ല, ഇതെന്തോന്നിനുള്ള പുറപ്പാടാ? ഒരു ഭാഗത്താണെങ്കിൽ കുറെ പേര് നാറ്റിച്ചേ അടങ്ങുമെന്ന് കച്ച കെട്ടി ഇറങ്ങിയിരിക്കുന്നു. അത് പിന്നെ അവരുടെ ആവശ്യമാന്ന് പറയാം. അതും പോരാഞ്ഞ് സഖാവാണെങ്കിൽ നാട്ടുകാരെ കൊണ്ട് ഉള്ളതും ഇല്ലാത്തതും ഒക്കെ പറയിപ്പിക്കും. അല്ല, എന്താ ഉദ്ദേശം? ഞങ്ങളെപ്പോലുള്ളവരോട് എന്തിനാ സഖാവേ ഈ ചതി?
ഞാൻ എന്ത് ചെയ്തെന്നാ?
എന്ത് ചെയ്തെന്നോ? അതിനി ഞങ്ങളെ കൊണ്ട് പറയിപ്പിക്കുകയും കൂടെ വേണോ?
ശ്രീധരൻ സാറ് നാട്ടുകാരെ മുഴുവൻ നിരാശപ്പെടുത്തി. ആളുകൾക്ക് എന്തൊരു പ്രതീക്ഷയായിരുന്നു. വെറുതെ ഉറങ്ങിക്കിടന്ന മനുഷ്യരെ വിളിച്ചുണർത്തിയിട്ട്
എവിടാ പോകുന്നത്? ഇരിക്കണം സഖാവേ. ചായ കുടിക്കണം. എന്നിട്ട് പതുക്കെ പറഞ്ഞാൽ മതി മറുപടി.
ചായ വേണ്ട.
ചാരായമേ കുടിക്കത്തുള്ളായിരിക്കും.
In the 11 feature films that you have made so far, one can actually see a shift in your narrative technique. For example, Swayamvaram had a linear and dramatic narrative style, whereas Kodiyattam had non-dramatic but linear. Whereas your later works are non-linear, episodic, and austere, which is unique to our cinema.
I am aware that as I progressed through these years, my films became more and more austere. In the sense, you are not interested in the unnecessary outward descriptions. Instead, you go straight to the core of the subject. I started getting involved in the essentials, not in the peripherals. So every time I sat down to write a script, I had to wean myself away from the influence of the previous film and find something very new and different. So film after film, I've been trying to chisel out my approach to making films. This is the sketch for the set of Elbadai house. This is the veranda outside. We are using this area. And this is the facade. Filmmaking is a process of making the introspection in a plastic way. You have to have the visuals, you have to have the sounds, you have to have narration. All this has to come from the same person who is basically a creator. He has to be an introvert as well as an extrovert. You may think it's a contradiction. No, it's not that. One is complementing the other.
You mean like Ajayan of Anantaram, who had a dual persona in his character?
Anantaram also, I have you tried to use the concept of reality for the perceiver, because I have done it in terms of cinema. Here, you have the frame, and within the audiences become comfortable with the what you see within the frame, and they think that is the whole reality. You alter the frame a bit, and there is a whole world outside the frame, and that what you see with the alteration of the frame can influence the reality that you have already got with you. It can influence, it can change, it can even torpedo that kind of reality.
To what extent your minimalism is the influence of Gandhi, whom you admire very much?
To make a confession, I became a great admirer of Gandhi even as a schoolboy. In fact, in the school days, I even started wearing khadi at that time. And I used to spin yarn on the charka. Because of my devotion to Gandhi only, I went to Gandhigram later. I think Gandhi is a man for all reasons, all seasons. We have moved away from the Gandhian ideals. And the development of technology does not mean that you have to be anti-Gandhian.
Most of your films are being told by a storyteller, and there are very many storytellers within the film, whether it be Anandaram or Oru Pennu Rendanam. The operation is told by a storyteller. Can you elaborate on that? Storytelling?
Actually, in a way, all my films are about storytelling. The advantage is, as in every epic, the epics are formed because somebody narrates it. And the narrated story will be interpreted and narrated by somebody else. So in narration, it takes on different qualities. Many new adjectives, many allusions. It's very interesting the way it grows. That has this advantage. So the character starts getting a more than life dimension. Actually, I think I have been greatly influenced by Eduthachen. And he makes the parrot tell the stories, and he is only a scribe who takes it down. It's a fantastic way of storytelling.
കിടാവോ നല്ല കോമള താമര പൂവിൽ നേറഞ്ഞ മധുവോ പാരി പുണേന്തു തൻ്റെ നീലാവോ. അടൂർ ഗോപാലകൃഷ്ണൻ ആണ് പൊതുവെ പേരെങ്കിലും ഞങ്ങളൊക്കെ ഗോപാലി എന്നാണ് വിളിക്കുന്നത്. ഗോപാലിനെ പ്രസവിച്ചത് പെറ്റത് എങ്ങനെയാണെന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ വലിയ ഒരു ഇടിയും മഴയും. അപ്പോൾ തന്നെ കുറേ അധിക സമയം വല്ലാതെ ഗൗരി കുഞ്ഞമ്മ വല്ലാതെ വിഷമിച്ചാണ് പ്രസവം ഉണ്ടായത്. രാത്രി ഒരു അധികം ഇരുട്ടിയ പാതിരാത്രി സമയമായപ്പോഴാണ്. അപ്പോൾ ഭയങ്കര ഇടിയും മഴയും ഒക്കെ വന്നുകൊണ്ടിരുന്നു. ആ മഴയത്താണ് പെറ്റത് തന്നെ 2 കാലാണ് ആദ്യം പുറത്തു വരുന്നത് പ്രസവപ്പേറ്റ്. അത് അപ്പോൾ തന്നെ എല്ലാവർക്കും ഒരു വിഷമമാണ് ഉണ്ടായത്. കാല് പിറക്കുന്നു എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ അന്നത്തെ കാലത്ത് ഒരു ദോഷമായിട്ടാണ് പറയുന്നത്. അവസാനം പുറം നിന്നുകൊണ്ട് ഒരാൾ പറഞ്ഞു, ഈ പേടിക്കണ്ട, ആ 2 കാലും വന്നത് ആ കാൽ 2 ചവിട്ടി തന്നെ ആ കുഞ്ഞ് വളർന്നു കഴിഞ്ഞാലും വലിയ ആളായിട്ട് മണ്ണിൽ തന്നെ വലുതായിട്ട് ഉറച്ചു നിൽക്കും, പേടിക്കണ്ട എന്ന് ഒരാൾ പറഞ്ഞു. അപ്പോൾ തന്നെ എല്ലാവർക്കും ഒരു ആശ്വാസവും സന്തോഷവുമായി. പിന്നെ
പാടാ കാല് പറക്കുവാന്നാ തോന്നുന്നേ.
എന്റെ പരദേവതേ, തള്ളയ്ക്കൊന്നും വരുത്തല്ലേ.
ഇത് നേരം വെളുക്കും, നമുക്കൊന്ന് ഉറങ്ങിയേച്ച് വരാം.
അതെന്താ ചേച്ചി അങ്ങനെ പറഞ്ഞേ? കൊരവിടേണ്ടി വരത്തില്ലെന്നാന്നോ?
എന്നാലും ഇന്നലെ വൈകുന്നേരം നോവ് തുടങ്ങിയതല്ലയോ.
പുറത്തു വന്നു. ആങ്കൊച്ച കരയുന്നില്ല. കാലെ തൂക്കിപ്പിടിച്ച് ചങ്കുവാക്കിനൊരു ഇടി.
Achan has borrowed a lot from the Taravadi where he was born and brought up. And he grew up in a huge family which is full of aunts, uncles, cousins, numerous. And it was one which allowed him a lot of freedom and also gave him space in a very strange way. And in a house which is full of children, hardly anybody paid attention to what they were doing and which class they were studying or anything. And they sometimes used to be at the mercy of the servants. It probably allowed a lot of room for creativity to come in. None of his aunties used to write plays, and then Achan and his brothers used to enact them, and it used to be appreciated. That way the Tarawad was, you could call it, it was a nursery for his creativeness. And then Achan has always been a very keen observer, and he always looks for certain things which he can include in his films. He had this uncle on whom he patterned Unni, the main character in Elipatayam. Though I've never seen my grandmother, she was gone long before I was born, but Achan has been very, very, very close to her, and he used to claim that he was her favorite son. But my Amuma was quite a strong lady. She looked after the her entire family at a time when she had to fend it off alone. And traces of her could be seen in the grandmother in Kadapurishan, who was ultimately in charge of the family, who looked after her daughter and the grandson and the entire brood. The similarity in the circumstances which were there, say in the film Aparajita, wherein the son comes home and finds a mother gone, it is very much there in Achan's life also, wherein he was studying in FTI, and my grandmother, who suffered from cancer, even though he could make it off and on, by the time he came home, she was gone. So probably for that reason he loves the film Aparajita much more than Apu Sansar or Pathir Panjali, which is probably what somebody else would favor. In the entire trilogy, he loves that film Aparajita.
പിന്നെ സമസ്ത കർമ്മങ്ങൾ ഭഗവാൻകൾ തന്നെ സമർപ്പണം ചെയ്തിടുക. പിന്നെ സമസ്ത ഭക്യം ഹരിസദ്ഗുണം. സർവലോകേശൻ ജഗന്മയനീശ്വരൻ ഇന്നു നീ ചിന്തിക്കിരം തഥാദ്യമിഹ. ഇന്നുള്ളിലോർക്ക ബ്രഹ്മം സർവകാരണം. പാർത്താൽ പരബ്രഹ്മമൂർത്തി നിന്നന്ദനൻ.
പാദത്തിൽ തൊട്ട് നമസ്കരിക്കും.
വേണ്ടതും സർവൈകാരണനായ നിൻ പുത്രനിൽ സർവദാ നിൻ ദേഹവാക്കമതർപ്പണം. സർവചരാചരഭൂതലോകങ്ങളും സർവയും സൂതികാമന്ദിരം എന്നിൽ നിന്നോട് കൈതവഹീനം അരു ചെയ്തതൊക്കെയും ചേതസിൽ നിന്നു മറന്നു പോയേനഹം.
അടൂർ സാറിനെ പറ്റി പറയാനാണെങ്കിൽ ഒത്തിരി 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 കഥകളുണ്ട് എനിക്ക്. കൊടിയേറ്റത്തിൽ കല്യാണം കഴിഞ്ഞ് 4 വിരുന്നിന് വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് വീട്ടിലേക്ക് പോകുന്നൊരു സീനുണ്ട്. പടം കണ്ടിട്ടുള്ളവർക്കൊക്കെ വളരെ അറിയാവുന്ന ഒരു സീനാണ് അത്. അപ്പോൾ ഈ ചെളി തെറിക്കും, ഇങ്ങനെ വണ്ടി ഇങ്ങനെ കടന്നു പോകുമ്പോൾ ചെളി തെറിക്കും. ഞാനിങ്ങനെ തിരിഞ്ഞ് നോക്കുമ്പോഴത്തേക്കും എന്തൊരു സ്പീഡ്. അതാണ് ഗോപിയേട്ടൻ്റെ ഡയലോഗ്. ഇങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ കാണിക്കുന്നു. ഗോപിയേട്ടനോട് ഞാൻ ചോദിച്ചു, ഗോപിയേട്ടാ ശരിയാണോ തെറ്റാണോ എന്നൊന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിരുന്നു, നമുക്ക് ഈ ചെളിയിൽ നിന്നൊന്ന് മാറി നിൽക്കായിരുന്നു. വളരെ ദൂരെയാണ് ഡയറക്ടറും ക്യാമറാമാനും നിൽക്കുന്നത്. അവിടെ നിന്നുകൊണ്ട് രവിവർമ്മ സാറും അടൂർ സാറും കൂടെ അത് പറയത്തില്ല. ഇത് കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് അദ്ദേഹം അവിടെ നിന്ന് പതുക്കെ നടന്നു വരും. ശരിയായിട്ടുണ്ട്, എന്നാലും ഒന്നും കൂടി നമുക്ക് എടുത്തു കളയാം. ഓരോ ആർട്ടിസ്റ്റിനോടും ചോദിക്കത്തില്ല. ഒരാളിനോടും അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് ദേഷ്യപ്പെട്ടിട്ട് ഒരു വാക്ക് പറയുന്നത് എൻ്റെ അനുഭവത്തിൽ ഞാൻ കണ്ടിട്ടില്ല, എന്നോട് ഒട്ടും ഉണ്ടായിട്ടില്ല. അപ്പോൾ പല പ്രാവശ്യം ഞാൻ ചോദിച്ചു, സാറേ എൻ്റെ ക്ലൈമാക്സ് എന്താണ്? അത് പറയാം ഇങ്ങനെ പറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ട് പോയി ചിരിച്ച് അപ്പം എൻ്റെ അടുക്ക പറഞ്ഞത്, ഞാൻ പറയാത്തതിൻ്റെ കാരണം നിങ്ങളുടെ അടുക്കൽ ഈ കഥ പറഞ്ഞു തന്നു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ നിങ്ങൾ നിങ്ങളുടേതായിട്ടുള്ള കുറേ കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ അതിനകത്ത് കലർത്തും. പക്ഷേ എൻ്റെ ഒരു രീതി എങ്ങനെയാണെന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ, ഞാനൊരു വിധത്തിൽ ആ ക്യാരക്ടറിനെ നെയ്ത് വെച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടാവും. അതിൽ നിന്ന് 1 ഇഞ്ച് മാറാൻ ഞാൻ സമ്മതിക്കത്തില്ല. ഈ ഒരു കാര്യം ചേർക്കാതിരിക്കാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ടാണ് ഞാനിത് കഥ പറഞ്ഞു തരാത്തത്. നിങ്ങളുടെ രൂപം മാത്രം മതി, അതിന് വേണ്ടിയിട്ടാണ്. അതുകൊണ്ടാണ് പറഞ്ഞു തരാത്തത്. അടൂർ സാറിൻ്റെ പടത്തിൽ എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു സ്ത്രീകളിൽ ഏറ്റവും കൂടുതൽ വർക്ക് ചെയ്തിട്ടുള്ളത് ഞാനാണെന്ന് തോന്നുന്നു. 5 പടം ചെയ്തു. ഇതിൻ്റെയൊക്കെ പുറമെ മതിലുകൾ, അതിൽ ശബ്ദം കൊണ്ട് മാത്രം നാരായണി എന്ന് പറയുന്ന കഥാപാത്രം. അപ്പോൾ സാറെന്നെ ഇടയ്ക്ക് ഇങ്ങനെ ഫോൺ ചെയ്തിട്ട് ഒരു ദിവസം എൻ്റെ അടുക്ക പറഞ്ഞു, ഞാനിപ്പോൾ ഒരു പടം ചെയ്തു, അതിൽ നായികയൊന്നുമില്ല, നായികയുണ്ട് പക്ഷെ ശബ്ദം മാത്രമേ ഉള്ളൂ. നല്ല ശബ്ദത്തിൻ്റെ ഉടമകളായിട്ടുള്ള കുട്ടികളെ ആരെങ്കിലും അറിയാമോ? ഒരു 4-5 പേരെ ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞു വിട്ടിട്ടുണ്ട്. പിന്നെ എന്നോട് ഒരു വാക്ക് പറഞ്ഞു, ഈ പറഞ്ഞ മാതിരി തന്നെ അവരാരും ശരിയായില്ല, ലളിത വന്നിട്ട് വേണം നമുക്ക് നോക്കാം, അതും വോയിസ് ടെസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യണം എന്നിട്ടേ എടുക്കുകയുള്ളൂ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. ചിത്രാഞ്ജലി കൊണ്ടുപോയി വോയിസ് ടെസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്ത് 2 ഡയലോഗ് പറഞ്ഞു. അപ്പോൾ സാറ് പറയുന്നു, നിങ്ങളല്ലേ KPS ലളിത എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്, എനിക്ക് KPS ലളിതയല്ല, KPS എൻ്റെ നാരായണിയുടെ ശബ്ദം അതാണ്, ഒരക്ഷരം അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അതാണ് ഈ രീതി എന്ന് സാറ് പറയുന്നതിൻ്റെ ഒരു കാര്യം. ആ രീതി മാറിപ്പോകാൻ പാടില്ല. അതേപോലെ ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞു. 2-3 ഡയലോഗ് കഴിഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ ഓക്കെ പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് ഇറങ്ങിപ്പോന്നു. റെക്കോർഡിസ്റ്റ് ഹരി എന്നെ വിളിച്ചു പറഞ്ഞു, 26 നാരായണിമാർ വന്നേച്ച് പോയി ഇവിടെ, 27ാമത്തെ നാരായണിക്കാണ് ജീവൻ വെച്ചതെന്ന്.
നാരായണി
എന്താ വേണ്ടത്? പിന്നല്ലാതെ കമ്പെറിഞ്ഞ് കൈയുടെ കുഴ പറഞ്ഞു.
ഞാൻ തടവി ശരിപ്പെടുത്താം.
എന്നാ കൈ തടവി ശരിപ്പെടുത്ത്. ഞാൻ മതിലിൽ കൊള്ളിച്ചു വെച്ചിരിക്കുക.
ഞാൻ ഈ മതിലിൽ തടവുന്നുണ്ട്, ചുംബിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്.
ഞാൻ മതിലിൽ നെഞ്ച് അമർത്തി ചുംബിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്.
നാരായണി, അവിടെ എത്ര സ്ത്രീകളുണ്ട്?
ഞാൻ മാത്രമേ ഉള്ളൂ.
കള്ളി പെണ്ണേ, നേര് പറയൂ, എത്ര എണ്ണം ഉണ്ട്?
കുറേയുണ്ട്, എല്ലാം പടുകിഴവികളാ.
എത്ര?
87.
സുന്ദരികൾ എത്ര, കിഴവികൾ എത്ര?
ഒരു സുന്ദരിയും 86 കിഴവികളും.
Adoor first came to me about, it must be over 50 years ago, when he was straight out of FTII. So he came like a young diffident student. And there too you saw his modesty, his exactitude, his dealings with people. He looks like a humble person, but really inside there's an immense confidence and an assurance of his craft. I have been fortunate that he turns to me for English subtitling. He spends almost a month and a half with me going over the lines repeatedly. Then when he goes back to Kerala, even say 2 months later, he will say, Uma, that word wasn't right. I think this word is better. What do you think? So even his subtitling, he's constantly improving with time. In my work as a film programmer, I found that Indian films very often are inaccessible to other audiences. Especially the social content, our cultural beliefs, our caste system, our class system. Sometimes even a North Indian does not understand the films of South India. This is not so with Adoor. Even though he is steeped in his ethos, in his environment, more than most directors. His films are essentially about Kerala and about life in Kerala, and yet it is the simplicity with which he tells a story, the way he presents human beings with all their feelings, that somehow the politics, you are aware of it, but it doesn't take center stage. What takes center stage is the human being, and what is happening to that human being from a very universal point of view. So you understand his films, even though they are extremely complex. So his films have a uniformity. They come together so well. They merge seamlessly, and therefore they have a powerful impact on the viewer.
Gaikanga. Jaja jaicha. Jaja jaijanya. Daita na. Jaja daita. Jaja daita na. Bye. Yera, la vasa. Shasaha, la raga.
Swayamvaram means not only a question of marrying, but making one's own choices. For me, music is a very important element of the soundtrack. In fact, music needs to be, background score particularly needs to be used very carefully, because it has a habit of underscoring certain things. For instance, while we were doing the Elipatayam, M.B. Srinivasan, who did background score for most of my films, I told him music should not be very pleasant to hear. It should be something like, we should give it the feeling of something falling, and never build up, because it's about the decay as the background, and nothing should be definitive in that sense. And MBS said, our music nobody will be able to hum. I think that is what is required, because here it is used as an effect. I use it as a leitmotif, and I use music very sparingly, and I call it the theme music. There can be sub-themes in a film, but then they should work as a second or third layer of the meaning of the film. Music should, in fact, add a new dimension, because in the minimum time, make the audience experience most at multiple levels. We have to layer it with several possibilities, meanings, interpretations, like the symphonies. Sound. Rolling. One, take two. Camera. Action. What is the role of the sounds in a film? Sound should be used according to the psychological requirement. If a particular sound will enhance or give a new meaning to the scene being portrayed, then we should use it.
ഇന്ന് ഉച്ചയ്ക്ക് കഞ്ഞി വെച്ചോ അമ്മേ? ക്ലാസ്സിലിരുന്നപ്പോ വല്ലാണ്ട് വിശന്നു.
വേഗം ചെന്നെടുത്ത് കഴിക്ക്. അടുക്കളയിൽ ഉറിയിൽ വെച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്.
ആ അമ്മയും കൂടെ വാ, നമുക്ക് ഒന്നിച്ചു കഴിക്കാം.
അമ്മയ്ക്ക് ഇപ്പൊ വിശപ്പില്ല, മോൻ ചെന്ന് കഴിക്ക്.
I'm also trying to tell the audience through my sounds, not just the dialogue. It was at the time of erecting the set for Nedal Kuttu. I noticed that from the palmera tree came a sound like thadak, 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 like that. It was very, very musical and very rhythmic. I said, my God, the palm tree is inviting itself into the film. And also this sounded like a heartbeat. This should be the heartbeat of the film. So from that time onwards, I incorporated this tree into the script. And the tree, as you will notice in the film, is overseeing what is happening in that house. Their sorrows, their crises, their moments of joy. It is almost like effects becoming music.
ശ്രീ പത്മനാഭദാസ വഞ്ചിപാല രാമവർമ്മ മന്നേ സുൽത്താൻ ശ്രീ ചിത്രതിരുനാൾ മഹാരാജാവ് തിരുമനസ്സുകൊണ്ട് കൽപ്പിച്ചുത്തരവായിരിക്കുന്ന എന്തെന്നാൽ അവിടുത്തെ നീതിന്യായ കോടതിയുടെ തീർപ്പിൽ തിരുമനസ്സിലെ പ്രജകളിൽ ഒരുവൻ അത്യന്തം ഹീനവും നിന്ദ്യവുമായ കൊലപാതക കൃത്യം നടത്തിയിട്ടുള്ളതും ആയത് സംശയാതീതമായി തെളിഞ്ഞിരിക്കുന്നതുമാകയാൽ കുറ്റവാളിയെ ഈ വരും കന്നി 23-ന് മരിക്കും വരെ തൂക്കുന്നതിനായി കൽപ്പിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നതാകുന്നു. ആയതിനാൽ നാഗരുകോവിലിൽ മേക്കുത്തെരുവിൽ ചിന്നപ്പൻ മകൻ കാളിയപ്പൻ വ്രതവും വൃത്തിയുമായി ഒരുങ്ങി ഒരുമ്പെട്ട് ഇരിക്ക വേണ്ടുന്നതുമാകുന്നു. ഇത് പൊന്നുതമ്പുരാൻ കൽപ്പിച്ച ഉത്തരവ്.
ஐயா உடம்பு கொஞ்சமும் சரியில்லை, வயசாயாச்சு. குழி தேவாரெல்லாம் தாங்காதையா, எப்படியாவது இன்னொരാളെ വെച്ചിടുങ്കോ.
നിനക്കും നിന്റെ വീടർക്കും ഉണ്ണാനും ഉടുപ്പാനും പൊന്നുതമ്പുരാൻ കൽപ്പിച്ചു തരുന്നില്ലേ? ചോരാതെ നനയാതെ വീടും കരമൊഴിവായി വസ്തുവകകളും അവിടുന്ന് കൽപ്പിച്ചു തന്നിട്ടില്ലേ? നാട് വാഴുന്ന പൊന്നുതമ്പുരാന്റെ കൽപ്പന എല്ലിട മാറ്റാൻ ആർക്കും അധികാരമില്ലെന്ന് നിനക്കറിഞ്ഞൂടെ?
When we tell a story, I don't solve the issues. I don't think I'm all powerful to do that. Instead, I pose the problems before an audience and to make them think. In fact, one of the difficulties I face while I make my films is that audience want everything to be told and finally, so that they can leave it there, forget about it. So I want them to take the ideas home and ruminate over it. I hope it happens, at least with some people. In Swayamvaram, at the end, her husband is no more and she is left alone. So here, I am asking the question to the society, what is her future? In fact, there is a lingering shot where the leading character is looking at the audience. It is not to make a judgment on her, but to leave a question in their minds. That is why it remains open-ended. So similarly, at the end of each film, I don't say this is all to their life. The life goes on. Probably for the time being, this is one ending that I have given, but there are several endings for the same problems. So that's why in many of my films, they are all, in fact, invariably they are all open-ended. I am often asked, how come your characters are very strange beings, very peculiar? So I have only this answer to give. They are not very strange people. Usually, we are seeing characters portrayed as types. I did not want to create automatons. Some are portrayed in white, some are in black, like that. So there are many shades between. I go very close to the characters and try to understand them. Of course, each of these characters are trapped in a situation, and then how do they behave for social reasons, for personal reasons, and that should be probed into.
സ്പീഡൊന്നും നമുക്കെന്ന് അറിയണമല്ലോ. ഇടല്ലേ ആശാനെ, അത്ര ധൃതിയാണ് അവന്മാർ പോകുന്നത് കാണുമല്ലോ. പൊടി കാണാറില്ല.
ചതിച്ചല്ലോ ശങ്കര.
എന്താ സാർ, എന്ത് പറ്റി?
ടയറ് പഞ്ചറായടാ.
See, watching Shankarankuti, many people have thought that is an idiot. They think this man is too very below their status. But he is simply like anybody else, like you and me. So people believe that some people are as very noble, as others very villainous, etc. There is no perfect villain. There is no perfect virtuous being in our lives. The very ordinariness of the character itself is the exception.
Five decades, 11 films. That is Adoor Gopalakrishnan's journey in films. During this period, India in general and Kerala in particular have undergone many upheavals. Adoor Gopalakrishnan's cinematic images have captured the anxieties, tension, and trauma of those times. Do these images merely capture the crisis of the time, or do they work as reflective images which anticipated the changes to come? We can understand all these better with hindsight.
ഒരു മിനിറ്റ്, ഇവിടെ എവിടെ ഫാക്ടറി ഉള്ളത്?
അപ്പുറത്തുണ്ട്, അവിടെ ഒരു ഫാക്ടറി ഉണ്ട്, ഇവിടെ ഒരു ഫാക്ടറി. അവിടെ ഒരു ഫാക്ടറി ഉണ്ട്, ഇവിടെ ഒരു ഫാക്ടറി. അവർ പറയുന്ന റിസോർട്ടിന് ഇവിടെ അനുയോജ്യമായ സ്ഥലമാണെന്നാണ് പറയുന്നത്.
ഞാൻ റിസോർട്ടിന് വന്നതല്ല, ഞാൻ അടൂർ ഗോപാലകൃഷ്ണന്റെ മുഖാമുഖം എവിടെ ഷൂട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്ന അറിയാനാണ് വന്നത്.
ഈ ഭാഗമാണ്, ഈ ഭാഗം നല്ല ഭാഗമാണ്.
ഞങ്ങൾ പോട്ടെ. അതെ,
നല്ല ഭാഗം.
കേരളത്തിൽ ഇപ്പോൾ എല്ലാവരും ടൂറിസം പറ്റിയിട്ടാണല്ലോ സംസാരിക്കുന്നത്.
മുഖാമുഖം സിനിമ റിലീസാകുമ്പോൾ എനിക്ക് 37 വയസ്സുണ്ട്. ഞാൻ ഈ ഭക്തിയിലെ തൊഴിലാളി പ്രവർത്തകൻ. പക്ഷേ അന്ന് അത് ഈ സിനിമ ഇറങ്ങുമ്പോൾ ഞങ്ങൾ പാടി എതിർത്തിരുന്നു. കാരണം ഞങ്ങൾക്കെതിരെയാണ് ഇന്ന് ബോധ്യം. 30 വർഷം കഴിഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ നോക്കുമ്പോൾ ആ സിനിമ ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് വേണ്ടിയുള്ളതാണ്. കാരണം റഷ്യ പോയി, കമ്മ്യൂണിസം പോയി, അതാണ് കാരണം. ആ ആശയം ഇന്ന് നോക്കുമ്പോൾ ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് വേണ്ടിയുള്ളതായിരുന്നു എന്ന് ബോധ്യം. ഇന്ന് നമ്മുടെ നാട് പാടെ പോയി. പഴയ കേരളമല്ല ഇന്നത്തുള്ളത്. ഇന്ന് ഇവിടെ വ്യവസായങ്ങളില്ല, പിന്നെ കൃഷിപാടങ്ങളില്ല, ഒന്നും പണി ചെയ്യുന്നില്ല, തൊഴിലാളികളെ കിട്ടാനില്ല. ഇപ്പം പിന്നെ എല്ലാവരും ടെറസ് വീടുകളും മറ്റുമായി പോയി.
അതിനു വേണ്ടിയിട്ടാണല്ലോ ഓട് ഫാക്ടറികളെല്ലാം പൂട്ടിയത്.
അദ്ദേഹം അന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ
സിന്ദാബാദ് സിന്ദാബാദ് സഖാവ് ശ്രീധരൻ സിന്ദാബാദ് സഖാവ് ശ്രീധരൻ സിന്ദാബാദ് ഇൻകുലാബ് 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 സിന്ദാബാദ് ഇൻകുലാബ് 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 സിന്ദാബാദ്.
ഞങ്ങളെപ്പോലുള്ളവരോട് എന്തിനാ സഖാവേ ഈ ചതി?
ശ്രീധരൻ സാറ് നാട്ടുകാരെ മുഴുവൻ നിരാശപ്പെടുത്തി. ആളുകൾക്ക് എന്തൊരു പ്രതീക്ഷയായിരുന്നു. വെറുതെ ഉറങ്ങിക്കിടന്ന മനുഷ്യരെ വിളിച്ചുണർത്തിയിട്ട്
Change in any society happens for two reasons. One, because of the active intervention of social and political forces, and change that happens because of the imperceptible processes in society. Now, both have contributed to the manner in which things have changed in Kerala. Post 1964, after the split of the communist movement, we see this decadence holding in its grip the mainstream Communist Party, a rebellion shaping up within the Communist Party, and a whole generation of young people becoming very sad and disturbed by the turn of events in the left stream of polity. And post 1980s, we see the increasing weakening of the social consciousness and the slow ascendance of a kind of individualism. When Adoor made Mukhamukham, for instance, Adoor was prescient in a certain way, looking at the way the whole idea of revolution had suffered this blow. His is an understanding of the situation in its imperceptible changing nature. It is not sloganeering. It is understated. It is encapsulation of an idea of the changing norms, mores and codes and organizational structure of society into the lives of people who appear on the screen.
Is this the house where Elipathayan was shot?
No, this is the style of house. It's not exactly the same house, but then I wanted a house that belonged to the period when the joint family system was in practice. And it is about one of those last vestiges of the feudal period. In this area, there are similar houses built that represents a architecture of a certain period, owned by landlords. Actually, these joint families owned a lot of undivided property, and they all enjoyed it with the head of family looking after them, and then somebody else working for you on your land. So all the producers, all the results of their labor, you are enjoying without putting any effort of your own. All these things have to change.
ഓ പാടാ, വലിയ പാടാ. ഇനിയുള്ള കാലം ജോലിക്കാരെ വെച്ച് കൃഷി ചെയ്യാൻ നോക്കണം. ഒന്നാമത് ആളിനെ കിട്ടത്തില്ല, പിന്നെ വല്ല ചാതി വന്നാൽ തന്നെ രായും പറയും ഒക്കെയാ.
എന്താടാ അമ്മ പറഞ്ഞ ഈ ചമ്മയുടെ വീതം നെല്ല് തന്നയിക്കാൻ?
സ്വത്തേ ക്ഷയിക്കത്തുള്ളൂ, അഭിമാനം ക്ഷയിക്കത്തില്ല.
The 20th century meant Gulf boom in Kerala and the manner in which India was related to the world market, what has come to be known as globalization. In fact, in Kerala during this period, the joint families have crumbled and the nuclear families have emerged. Now, this brought about an entirely different social situation. This led to a lot of tensions within the family and within the society. And as a result, today, Kerala society is ridden with violence, with disrespect to different sections or individuals, and we find that the positive elements of the society's existence have been lost. Now, is there anything which replaced it? Now, one would expect a proletarian humanism to emerge. But as it is very clear in Mukhamukham, for instance, such a proletarian humanism did not develop. As a result, we find that the society become more cruel and more brutal. This brutality is something which needs to be probed into. And in a way, Adoor is trying to do that in his political films and not necessarily in the social sphere.
The rooted world of Adoor cinema, I think, brings out the contradictions inherent in the matrilineal system. You think that the matrilineal system is going to empower women, but when you see it in practice, it seems to be that women seem to be trapped in that system. And I think the best example of that is Elipatayam, Adoor's masterpiece. There you combine the crumbling of feudalism, the paralysis of Unni's character, and the three women who are there trapped along with him. Rajamma doesn't seem to be aware of her rights at all. Finally, she becomes a victim of that system. In a way, it's an indictment of both feudalism and a matrilineal system. Whereas Kamakshi of Nal Pennugal is caught in a certain situation and finds freedom by breaking free and finding the individual self. And in Oru Pennu Rendalum, it is a totally radical kind of a departure. And I think Punky is so very confident of her own self. Here, Adoor is hinting that with the rise of the middle class, women find more freedom in that environment. So, in a way, is he anticipating a certain kind of women's assertion of their real selves, their sexuality, and their right to live by their own code? It's a very interesting thought to see that he might be sort of having a kind of a foreshadowing of things to come in the lives of women. Perhaps because Adoor, being like an artist who's so aware of the past and the present, can also maybe anticipate things that are yet to come. You infer it through the growth of the story, through the narrative, and through the development of that character. And it almost seems like preordained that he reaches this point of culmination of starting from a stereotypical kind of a situation, social, political, to reach some kind of a dramatic peak where there is a foreshadowing of things to come maybe. I don't know whether we're reading too much into it, but it's nice to feel that you can sense these things in the work of a master like Adoor.
13, 15, 17, 19, 21, 23, 25, 27, 29, 30, 33, 35, 37. രണ്ട് 4 6 8 10 12 14 16 18 20 22 24 26 28 30 32 34 36 38.
ഈ കഥയ്ക്ക് ഇനിയും പൂർണ്ണത വന്നിട്ടുണ്ടോ എന്നെനിക്കറിയില്ല. ഓർക്കാത്തതും പറയാത്തതും ബാക്കിയുണ്ടെന്ന് തോന്നുന്നു.
What an insightful film about filmmaking, images, reflections was. We believe this film was a true masterclass for enthusiasts of theatre art and filmmaking. It skillfully intertwined the worlds of theatre and cinema, presenting an authentic and captivating narrative. The performances were outstanding, portraying the complexities of artists and their creative process. The cinematography and technical aspects demonstrated exceptional craftsmanship, creating a visually stunning experience. Images, Reflections paid homage to both theatre and film, celebrating their interconnectedness. Thank you for your unwavering dedication to the arts and taking the Kannada cinema industry to the new heights. Thank you so much. I invite Shri Adoor Gopalakrishnan ji onto the stage.
All are requested to be seated quietly. Now I request Gopika Verma ji to please welcome Adoor sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Adoor Gopalakrishnan ji is the acclaimed Indian filmmaker who has achieved numerous accolades throughout his career. His debut feature film, Swayamvaram, released in 1972, marked the beginning of the new cinema movement in Kerala and garnered critical acclaim. Over the course of his career, he has directed a total of 8 feature films, including Eli Pathayam and Mukham Mukham, which have received major national and international awards. Eli Pathayam received the prestigious British Film Institute Award in 1982, while Mukham Mukham won the International Film Critics Prize in 1985. His film Katha Purushan was honored with the National Award for Best Film in India in 1995. Adoorji's films have been showcased and celebrated at international film festivals and retrospectives, including events in Pesaro, Helsinki, La Rochelle, Nantes, Munich, and New York. In recognition of his contributions to Indian and world cinema, Adoor Gopalakrishnan ji has been bestowed with esteemed awards and honors. He received the highest cinema award of India, the Dada Saheb Phalke Award, in 2005. In 2006, he was honored with the Padma Vibhushan, one of India's top civilian awards for his contribution to the arts. The French government bestowed upon him the Legion of Honor with the title of the Commander of the Order of Arts and Letters, recognizing his international cinematic achievements. His dedication to filmmaking and his impact on the industry have been further acknowledged with honorary degrees from institutions such as Mahatma Gandhi University and the University of Kerala. In 2013, the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee inaugurated the Adoor Gopalakrishnan Film Archive and Research Fund to preserve his films and promote study and research of his work. Additionally, various international film festivals, including those in Denver, Cairo, Bombay, Colombo, and New Jersey, have honored him with Lifetime Achievement Awards. Adoor Gopalakrishnan ji's contributions to cinema continue to be celebrated, and his works have left an indelible mark on the Indian and global film landscape. Your charismatic aura was felt through the glimpses of you in the film, sir. We now again invite Shri Girish Kasarwali ji onto the stage. Our facilitator, Ms. Meenu Shankar, is ready with her round of questions for the legends seated here.
Before we begin the discussion, there's a 3-minute film that would be played, and Adoorji will give the introduction for that.
No, there are actually, since I was coming to SPIC MACAY's convention, I thought instead of coming and talking to you, I should take with me something. So the last 5 years' time, my only work was a 3.5 minutes short film, and a half an hour, again, a short film. Now, the second one is a story film. It has a story structure. First one is on a Center for Performing Arts that we have started back in Kerala. So, on the eve of the inauguration of the center last year, I thought we should screen something for the big audiences who would come there for the function. So you wouldn't believe it that I shot a film on my cell phone. I had no assistants, no sound engineers, no technicians, nobody. I just walked around and shot this film. So you will see that film first. And after that, there is this half an hour film, which is called Sukhantyam. which means happy end. It's about a company instituted by a couple of unemployed people, but then very resourceful people, to run a company which would offer a very comfortable end to their lives, to the clients. So that is the company. So the rest of it you are going to see it as subtitles. I wouldn't explain it. So first, the first film, 3.5 minutes film, is titled Vastu Stuti. Vastu Stuti means it's an ode to the architecture. Ode to the architecture of the Center for Performing Arts that we started a year back, which incidentally I am chairing. So it is under the government of Kerala. So please see that first and then second, followed by the other film.